Y ahora es el turno de recibir, por un lado, a Mike Spier y también a Vince Peterson. Ellos van a estar exponiendo sobre el mercado norteamericano. Vince, presidente de US Wheat, y Mike es vicepresidente de operaciones globales en la empresa US Wheat Associates. Fuerte ese aplauso para recibir a Mike y a Vince.
Well, it's great to be back at Aleem. I just want to say thank you to Johnny Hildebrand and Alex Daly for the invitation to come back and the opportunity to give you an update on the U.S. wheat situation. I was talking with Johnny last night at the dinner. What an amazing dinner that was. I'm a huge barbecue fan, and as soon as I stepped off the bus last night, I said, I smell barbecue. And it was fantastic. Barbecue empanadas, loved it all. Congratulations to Aleem and all the directors on another successful conference. So today I'm going to give a quick update on the U.S. wheat production, crop quality highlights, take a look at the U.S. wheat export sales pace, and then at the end, take a look at the 2025 crop that's being planted now, kind of the outlook for that. And then at the end, I'll turn things over to Vince for a little bit to get some of his insight, and we might even see maybe his crystal ball again too. So I'll save some time for that. So in terms of the wheat classes in the United States, U.S. wheat farmers produce 6 different types of wheat with a variety of end-use characteristics. We have our low-protein wheats. On the left, the soft white wheat, soft red winter wheat, medium-protein wheats, hard red winter wheat, hard white wheat, and our high-protein wheats, hard red spring wheat, and durum. We have a really kind of a spread-out growing region in the United States for wheat. The hard red winter wheat in green, right here, is the largest class of wheat produced in the United States in the Central Plains. Then we have our high-protein wheats, our hard red spring wheat, durum up here in the Northern Plains. Here in the Pacific Northwest on the West Coast is the majority of our soft white wheat. Over here on the eastern side is soft red winter wheat. We have our U.S. Wheat chairman that is with us here, Clark Hamilton. You heard him speak at our U.S. Wheat dinner. He farms here in the eastern part here of Idaho. They grow soft white wheat, some hard red winter wheat, some spring wheat, and also some famous Idaho potatoes. In terms of this year's crop, we had a shift in the weather patterns this year from an El Nino to a La Nina, which provided some very timely rains to the wheat crop. The last 3 years in the United States, total wheat production has been curtailed due to extreme drought conditions, particularly the last couple of years. So we had some timely rains that has helped our production. On the map here on the left is the winter wheat growing areas in green. The dark green colors are the major growing areas, and the map on the right is our spring wheat growing areas. This is as of June 25th this year in terms of the areas. The red areas are the drought areas, so you can see approximately how much of the winter wheat production area is experiencing drought. This year it was better. As of June 25, about 21% of the winter wheat area was experiencing drought, compared to last year at that time was 55%. So an improvement there. And also on the spring wheat, we had some better moisture this year. About 5% of the hard red spring wheat area was experiencing drought, and compared to last year at 15%. So with that better moisture that we had, even though we had lower planted area, we had an increase in overall wheat production. This year, projected projections at 53.7 million metric tons, which would be the highest production in about 8 years. And we've seen each of the wheat classes produced in the United States, with the exception of soft red winter wheat, we've seen an increase in production compared to the previous year. Soft red winter wheat production is down 24% this year, but last year was an exceptional year for soft red winter wheat. We had some near record yields in some states, and production was some of the highest we've seen in about 10 years. So overall, really good production this year. High quality wheat. During the growing season, then we get into the harvest season. Throughout the harvest season, samples are collected, they're graded. All this information goes into our final U.S. wheat crop quality report that is available now on the U.S. Wheat Associates website. There's a lot of great information in this crop quality report. You have baking characteristics, milling characteristics, grading data. And also in the next couple of weeks, the U.S. Wheat Associates offices in Mexico City, U.S. Wheat Associates offices in Santiago will be conducting their U.S. wheat crop quality seminars. So they'll be going into a lot more detail of the grade and milling and baking characteristics. So I encourage you, if you haven't already, sign up for one of those seminars in the region. I'll give you a brief overview of the U.S. wheat grades this year for the wheat classes. Each of the wheat classes this year, in terms of, we had some very good test weight, hard red winter, hard red spring, soft white, all over 80 kilograms per hectoliter or higher. Soft red winter wheat was 78 kilograms per hectoliter, and durum between 79 and 82 kilograms per hectoliter. Very high test weight. In terms of grade, each of the classes graded a U.S. number 1 or U.S. number 2. U.S. wheat farmers did another excellent job in producing a very high quality crop. The grade number 1 is the highest grade in the U.S. wheat grading system. Softer winter wheat was U.S. number 2 just because it was slightly lower on test weight, but still a very high quality crop. And in terms of protein, hard red winter wheat, and this is hard red winter wheat that's Gulf tributary exports or the P&W tributary exports. Overall, the protein average of the hard red winter wheat crop is 12%. Hard red spring wheat, 14.1. Soft white wheat is a little bit lower than average at 9.2%. Typically, average for soft white wheat would be closer to 10%. So make sure that you're checking your contract specification, working with your exporters to make sure you're getting the protein for soft white wheat that you want. Soft red winter wheat at 9.8 and durum wheat between 13.6 and 14.3. And on the falling numbers for each of the wheat classes were 300 seconds or higher, which indicates a very sound quality and characteristics for this year's wheat crop. So, as I mentioned, we have the U.S. Wheat Crop Quality Report available on the website. So a good use, I always recommend buyers to use this. I think it's important to get your purchasing and your quality control staff together to meet, review your contract specifications, and compare those based on the current crop quality attributes for this year's wheat crop. Look for ways that you could modify your specifications by tightening a specification or relaxing a specification that will increase the value of U.S. wheat you received. Work with your exporters on that. U.S. wheat is available to work with you on that. Go through the crop quality report together. Happy to do that with you. On the export side, U.S. wheat exports have bounced back, projected this year at 22.5 million metric tons. That's up from last year. Last year, because of the 2 years of drought that we had, last year's exports were the lowest exports that we've seen in 50 years. So nice to see that our exports have bounced back. Each of the wheat classes are projected to have higher exports this year, with the exception of soft red winter wheat. Soft red winter wheat was down, but again, last year was a very high export year, highest year we've seen for soft red winter wheat exports in 10 years. Overall, the biggest year-on-year increase that we've seen for our, by class was hard red winter wheat exports projected up 64% compared to last year. So with that increase in production, increase in supplies in the U.S., a higher projected outlook for U.S. wheat exports at the beginning of the marketing year, which is June 1 of 2024, and that goes through May 31st of 2025. So after the beginning of the marketing year, with that improved supply outlook, improved export outlook, we saw prices for U.S. wheat, export prices trending lower. And that really helped, I think, U.S. wheat classes be more competitive on the global market. And we've seen a very good start to the U.S. wheat export season in the first half of the marketing year. We're 5 months into this new marketing year now, and you can see here from the U.S. wheat export sales pace as a projected as a percent of the projected exports, and the projected exports are on the bottom here. Hard red winter wheat, 5 months into the marketing year, and we're already nearly 50% of the projected exports. Hard red spring, soft white, and soft red winter wheat also off to a great start, and above 60% for 60 to 64, 71% for those three classes in terms of the projected exports. Durum wheat about 30%. Projected exports are less than 1 million tons on durum wheat. Also, not only are we off a good start for the marketing year, we're seeing U.S. wheat sales around the globe up compared to last year. 6 of the 7 U.S. wheat regions we're seeing higher sales this year compared to last year. You see the Mexico region up 36%, South America up 52%. Let's take a closer look on Latin America for U.S. wheat export sales. U.S. wheat export sales this year at 5.4 million metric tons, up nearly 40% compared to the same time last year. Mexico is the top export market for U.S. wheat. Export sales up 21% compared to last year. And some other key markets, Brazil, Ecuador, Chile, Colombia, and Honduras, also up compared to the same time last year. Those key markets there are up a combined 35% compared to the previous year. So thank you very much. On behalf of the U.S. wheat farmers, thank you very much for your imports and for your business. So now I'll take a look ahead into next year's crop. Farmers have harvested the 2024 crop and have been planting next year's crop, the winter wheat classes for next year. That's the soft white wheat winter. We also have soft white spring, soft red winter wheat, and hard red winter wheat. Planting begins around September, depending on weather, and finishes sometimes at the end of October or sometimes into November. This year, because we had that shift, I think back in June, we had some timely rains, but from June, once the beginning of the new marketing year started, we saw things start to turn a little bit dry, which created some concern for next year's crop in the market. The map on the left, again, is that winter wheat area that's experiencing drought as of June 25. Fast forward to October 15th, and you can see that the drought started to persist, started to get stronger in some of our major hard red winter wheat growing areas. So the line here is August, a little after August. In September, farmers started planting their wheat, and you can see prices, because of those drier conditions and the concerns about next year's crop, U.S. wheat prices started to trend higher. Also, in addition to that, another factor is you get into October, November, and December, and those are prime export months for soybeans and corn out of the Gulf exports, also the P&W. So wheat has to compete for export capacity during those months with those two commodities. In terms of the wheat planting pace and emergence pace for the next year's crop, this is as of October 20th. About 73% of the winter wheat crop has been planted. That's slightly below last year in the 5-year average. And emergence of that wheat that after it's planted, after it comes up, that's also a little bit behind pace because of those drier conditions. But fortunately, we have hopefully some optimistic outlook here for precipitation in the next 8 to 14 days, where we might be able to get some rain, particularly in those drier areas I had up on the previous map there. Last week, we had Kansas. This is a map here, a precipitation map of Kansas. Kansas is the largest producer of hard red winter wheat. We did have a little bit of rain. The good thing about it was widespread throughout the state. Still needs some more rain, though, for this year's crop. I think if we do get some more rain, that'll probably be bearish for prices. So important to kind of watch the weather patterns here in the U.S. in the near term for looking at price direction. So to summarize things up here, we have U.S. wheat production is up 9%. Exports rebounding from last year, up 17%. U.S. wheat export supplies at the end of May, into the crop year, also projected higher as well. And again, we have our U.S. wheat crop quality report. Our farmers produced another excellent quality crop this year. If you haven't already, please go ahead and visit the U.S. wheat website, download the crop quality report, and again, participate in the upcoming crop quality seminars. So I'll stop here. I'm going to leave a little bit of time here for Vince. We'll bring him up here, get his insight, and again, see what his crystal ball says. So thank you very much.
So thank you, Mike. I appreciate the opportunity. And before I start, I just wanted to make a thank you, Alex Daly. This is your 42nd ALEEM meeting to organize. I've had the pleasure to attend my 25th. But I know when you organize these things, these are unbelievable amounts of work. So with that, Johnny, Hildebrand, and your obviously excellent staff at Capimol, this is a fantastic venue, the program, the setting, all of the events that you've planned is just outstanding. So if I could ask for a little round of applause for that, thank you very much for that. And finally, the Feeding the Future title was a perfect one, I think a good one for me to kind of finish up with. And I'm not going to spend very much time, just a couple of minutes here today. You've heard enough of me over the years, and it's time to kind of move on from that. But when I was thinking about what I might do, I think this is right here being in the soccer, sorry, my American version, football capital of South America. I thought you probably have so many football games on every week, you never get a chance to see all of them. So at the end of the week, you go to the sports channel and you look at the highlights and you see all of the goals that were scored for all the different games. That's kind of what I'm going to do just for a couple of minutes. I think I tried to go back through some of my own presentations and see what we'd pulled out and how we'd approach these things. And frankly, we talked about a lot of serious things. We talked about economics and finance and trade, supplies, prices, all of those kind of things over the years. But I always tried to do it with at least a little bit of interest, a little bit of humor, and talk about that. So I wanted to look at just a few of them. But the first slide I pulled out was one I didn't really get a chance to use. And it was the title slide I was intending to use in Lima, Peru in 2020 when COVID hit and the program had to be canceled at that particular time. But I wanted to put it in here because I think it's an interesting slide. We were both organizations, US Wheat and ALEEM, celebrating our 40th anniversaries at the same time in 2020. There are more similarities behind that. US Wheat is owned by essentially family farmers, generational farmers that years ago had two wheat organizations and in 1980 merged them into one to form US Wheat Associates. Very similarly, the Latin American milling industry, particularly in South America where ALEEM started, were family flour milling companies, generational milling companies that came together to form ALEEM as an associate at the same time. We were kind of lucky that all that came together at one time. We've been happy to be partners over the last now 40, well, it's more than 44 years total, even though we missed a couple of conferences. So what I wanted to do is just kind of flip through, I'll do it really, really quickly, kind of what we've gone through. And this was always, of course, sort of my signature reliance. I could always blame anything that I misspoke on the crystal ball. If I made a prediction, I could say, well, the crystal ball was wrong, not me. But I've used it over the years in various different ways. And just for an example, at ALEEM 2013 was in Peru. We kind of made a very funny look at what do we know about wheat prices and market observations. Came to Mexico in 2019. We kind of made a check around the world when we kind of said, is everything good out there? The answer came back uniformly no everywhere. Coincidentally, that was the very month that COVID-19 was being fomented in China, and it wouldn't be more than 2 or 3 months later that the world essentially would come to a halt, almost for 2 years after that. So it's kind of important time period. The crystal ball needed some explanation, so in Peru I actually had to get out the instruction manual to how to read the thing. And it's a little bit like any of the rest of us. I don't know how you are, but me with my telephone or my computer, when do you read the instruction manual? Only when it's not working. So I only suspect that maybe the year before my crystal ball didn't work very well and I needed to read the instruction manual probably for this one. This time of the year is just very political. We had several panel discussions at this meeting about the politics, both local and a lot of speculation about the U.S. We happened to be in Argentina in 2015. Diego had to leave a little bit earlier, but in the early stages, we had Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump tangoing in Argentina. It turned out they were the final candidates for the election in 2016, and of course that was history, Donald Trump making that. But the next year in Puerto Rico in 2016 was right at the time of the election. Donald Trump won that election, and we were all trying to decide what that was going to mean for us, and so we were hoping Donald Trump was going to make wheat great again. And we worked very hard with him to help that happen, and he helped us in some ways, but we spent some sleepless nights along the way as well. Into his presidency, we had Aleem in Chile in 2018. We were all still trying to figure out what was going on, but we had a suggestion for everyone to Aleem at that time is, do not pay any attention to Donald Trump's tweets. If you watch what he does, if you watch the actions, you get a much better idea of what really is going on. And I happen to think that 6 years later, this is probably still pretty good advice. 2014, we're in the Dominican Republic at the Hard Rock Cafe Resort. We had to switch over to a rock and roll theme, and so here we had Bruce Springwheat talking about the spring wheat class that Mike just had. So we had a separate rock band for every class of wheat we had. We had some fun with that. Then we went through a kind of a series of themes, and I'll just do them real quickly. In Venezuela, 208, the time when the Arab Spring started, Russia backed out of contracts. Wheat prices went through the stratosphere, and we used the space shuttle as the launching point for prices. In fact, we had the space telescope out there trying to figure out how far the prices were going to go up. But no sooner did we have that Aleem, we went to Argentina again in 2009. The very next year, wheat prices were almost crashing, and we used a biplane with smoke as it was about to crash wheat prices that year. Used sports at several different meetings. Used your football, Latin American football, and our American football a couple of different times. Columbia 2010, I used this to show how badly wheat was getting crushed between soybeans and corn for the competition for land areas at the time. Well, frankly, that's still going on, not getting any better. And finally, in Aleem 2011 in Guatemala, I used a series of road and highway signs to kind of describe the pathway that we were taking through the air with the markets and all those things. And here was one of the final slides trying to predict prices in an unbelievably confusing intersection. And the best advice I could apparently leave with you at that time was good luck. So that wasn't very helpful probably for you. But in the end, we're kind of back to my final use of the crystal ball, and I'm only going to use it one more time, and I'm a little bit over, so I'll make this pretty quick. But there's just one slide, actually there's two slides I'm going to just finish with, because I think it gives us a little bit of an optimistic view of what might be ahead for us, talk about feeding the future. This is the total Latin American wheat situation since the formation of Aleem and U.S. Wheat Associates in 1980. If we just look at the components, population grew about 300 million people between those 44 years, up to 670 million. And then if you look at the results of that population increase, below that we have the domestic consumption of wheat, and this is everything from Mexico to Argentina and Brazil to Ecuador, and everyone in between. We added almost 20 million tons of consumption across the entire region. Wheat exports, which we're very happy to see, grew over 20 million, more than doubled over the time, up to 25 million tons. That's our exports to Latin America. And then internal exports, Diego spoke about Argentine exports. You saw Paraguay talk about potential exports. Brazil certainly is interested, have grown over the years as well. And that potential probably still has more way to go. But if we then look forward at that a little bit and look ahead, what's ahead for the next 25 years, population is going to grow another 80 million people over that period of time. And if we look at the impact on those, wheat consumption is likely to go up into the very high 40s, 49 million tons of wheat. It's going to grow over that period of time. We expect exports to increase. The line, when you draw that kind of a projection, looks a little flat. Clearly, South America or Latin American exports are very volatile, good years and bad years, and that's just the way we all are in this business. So that line ends up at 21 million tons, but you're going to see peaks and valleys as that line progresses, just like the imports of U.S. wheat in the red line. All of those show very good optimistic opportunities. That's a bad combination, opportunities for growth in all of the sectors that we deal with, from farmers to exporters, flour millers, traders, bakers, all have an opportunity for growth in the next 25 years. In fact, if that trend projection on consumption were to grow linearly, we might even beat this this curve that starts to flatten out a little bit? What if all of our collective efforts helps to eliminate celiac disease or aversion to gluten products, or we eliminate the aversion to some of the carbohydrates in our diets? We have research and development puts better products into our marketplace. We just might raise that curve and even have a better outlook than I think this is. And finally, just thinking about the dollars involved, I put a chart together on the total retail market value. Well, the type got a little messed up here, to 2050. This is all wheat food products in all the countries. Today, that's about a $32 billion total market. In 25 years, we project that out with the growth potential, even out to that 49 million ton volume, out to about $47 billion. That's a $15 billion increase in value in the industry, and that is inflation adjusted. We didn't do those in nominal values. We put 3% inflation in US dollar value into that calculation. So those of you that are making investment decisions in the industry, expanding your plants, putting money into research and development, expanding your staff, salespeople, I think there's a very good reason for optimism that those are going to pay off and be rewarding for you. So final slide, I need to put the stamp on Alim 2024 on Paraguay. We came in early on Saturday. I took my crystal ball down to the Paraguay River to take this picture. You believe that? No, I didn't really do that. But I did find a nice picture on the internet. So when I was looking at this, I said, it's the last slide. A nice sunset is something to put in here. And then I got to looking at this a little more closely. I actually don't think that's a sunset. If I look at it, the sky's a little bit hazy. The water is perfectly calm. I think it's a sunrise. And frankly, I think a sunrise is even a better use of a landscape probably for where we leave. How do we look at the future? I think it depicts the optimism that we all have together in the industry. I think it's a new day for everyone. For those of you that are going to spend the next 25 years in the industry, I'm going to be reading about you in the Millennium Bacon News, and I'll be looking very closely to follow your successes. But I can guarantee you that U.S. Wheat Associates will always be there with staff in D.C., Mitch Galiski's office in Mexico, Miguel's office in Santiago, to be your partners all the way through to help you be profitable in your own industries and hopefully make some profitability for our own farmers. So thank you very much. Appreciate the time and attention. Nice to visit with you all.
Thank you very much, Vince. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, everybody. Muchísimas gracias.